On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being just as on it as you can possibly be, how on it is your best friend when you ask for that?
She is ready. Ready. She's like, oh, this can happen, this can happen, this can happen, this, and this. Did you think about this? And then what about this? What about in 2 years when this happened? And I'm like,
man, that's the thing. You better be ready for an answer when you ask a sick something like that. Cause they have been there. They are there and they have that list and they are ready. And they'll probably tell you a whole lot more than even what you were prepared for. I'm Kim.
And I'm Camille, and this is Enneagram for the Culture, where two dope Black therapists discuss how therapy, Blackness, and the Enneagram come together. Here we are.
Yes.
Doing it.
How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good. I'm good. I am amped. I'm excited. I'm going to try my best to not make this episode a love letter to my husband.
Right.
But I'm excited to talk about this. Yes.
We're talking about sixes, and your husband is a 6.
Through and through. So lots and lots of context. So let's talk about how the Enneagram has shown up for us this week. I can go.
Yeah, go ahead. How has it shown up for you this week?
Camille, so you remember we was talking about a few episodes ago, all the things that we have kind of gotten into and taken on in the midst of the pandemics.
Yes. What happened? Yes. You had your plants.
Yep. And so we're coming up on a year. I got all my babies my birthday. And so my birthday is next month. But we got 2 that didn't make it.
Oh no.
2 fallen soldiers.
R.I.P. R.I.P. Yes. What were their names?
Majesty.
And
Simba.
And Simba. Why was it named Simba?
What do you mean why? What kind of question is that? What do you mean why? What do you mean why is his name Simba?
Did he have some sort of lion-esque traits? Oh,
yeah. Well, they are what are they? Corn. They're a type of palm. So they're they look kind of prickly, but tall and kind of, royal. Kind of look like that. Their crowns. I love the Lion King. Yeah. So there was a Simba and a Nala.
And so Simba.
Nala's thriving. And we talked about this one too. Males, but Majesty is a girl. Anyway, they're gone. And I kind of struggled with that and realized it's kind of tied to maybe some, failure stuff. But
I think that plants, they can have a mind of their own and we don't know their mind. And I think that all that matters is, do you feel like you took good care of them? Regardless of the outcome, do you feel like you did a good job of caring for them?
Spineless yucca or yucca. Is it yucca or yucca? YUCCA. That's what Nala and Simba. I feel like I invested $29.95 per month in this freaking app to tell me, I got pictures, I do progress updates, tells me when to water. If there's any type of problem, I can tap into the doctor feature and ask questions. I was invested. I got all of I tried. I did.
So then that's what you should focus on. Yeah. Instead of
that. Enneagram is showing up for you this week. It's right here in this moment.
Yeah. Because you still tried your best and you loved on them, and the outcome wasn't what you thought, but that's not going to define your worth and success as a plant parent. It's just not.
Thank you, my very, very, very amazing, optimistic friend. And sister. Thank you.
You're welcome. But I am sorry about your plant losses, and it's a journey. So I hope you had a good time with them. I hope that they brought you joy in life while they were alive.
They did.
I'm sorry.
Thanks.
Did you throw them away? Like, how do you get, that's sad. I don't know. I haven't had to do that. And I don't think I could. I think I'd have to take it to a plant shop for them to do it. I can't.
That's nice. Yeah. I think, again, more I wanted to, by the time I realized it was, because it took me a while to accept, I was trying to figure out, how to do it, fix it, bring it back, did all the things, repotted, new soil, everything, tried to, but when I accepted that it was done, like it needed to move on from it, kind of as quickly as I could, because I don't like to, feel a lot of that.
So you just kind of quickly and coldly threw them out. Okay.
I don't know. What made it cold? Quick, perhaps, but why cold? Because I didn't take them to the plant shop.
Did you say goodbye? Did you say goodbye? Did you have like a thank you next moment, or?
I'm feeling judged. I'm feeling judged.
I'm feeling
judged. People, Camilla judging me.
I'm being curious.
I didn't do any of those things. I tried to save them. And then when after mentally, I realized, no, they're gone. Majesty is gone. There's no bringing her back. Simba is gone. There's no bringing him back. I took them out back and I put them in the trash can. And I put the soil on the ground. Maybe that was the ritual. You're shaming me for not creating it. Maybe that was
am so surprisingly very sad about this story. And I don't like that I didn't know I was going to be this sad about it. And I'm thinking about my plant babies and if I had to say goodbye to them, and I'm so sad. And so I'm so sorry.
Thanks. It sucked. It took a while to accept. It really did. Well, my mom asked, when she came to relish in the season, she asked about them, and I told her. And I think I shared, how she was kind of like, snarky when I first started on this plant journey, because she kills everything that she tries to keep alive besides me. As far as plants goes. So she was, and she was compassionate. She's like, well, we can get you some more for your birthday again. It was nice.
That was kind of her.
Yeah, it was. I'm not sure if I'm there yet.
Okay.
We still have 5 others that are thriving, doing great. So that also helps. Now, granted, most of them are snake plants, and
And now you're judging. I can't. Don't judge the snake plant. Don't leave him alone.
No, I'm not. They're great. They just don't really. Okay, let's get into the 6s.
Yeah, instead of being harsh.
You started it. You was harsh because
all right. We're gonna let it go. Plants are too sensitive for us. Plants are off limits topic for us.
It's a hard conversation. I thought about not bringing this to the show, but here we are. Vulnerability, transparency, growth.
So we're still in our head triad. We are moving on to the 6s, and Kim, start us off.
Okay. So remember, we talked about the types that are in the center of the respective triads, how they are a little more nuanced. So 6 not only, still in the head triad, but at the center of the head triad. So sometimes the center of intelligence, it can look kind of repressed. So 6s are some of the most reliable, hardworking, dutiful, and steady people out there. They can be plagued with internal fear. So we touched on fear for the types in the head triad, and uncertainty, kind of just a lack of trusting, and that can show up in the form of what we'll touch on a little bit later, an inner committee. Anything and everything. 6s can kind of have a tendency to go through an internal process or a mental process where there are lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and questions about the thing. And that's in an effort to plan and prepare for really all of the potential worst case scenarios in any given situation, which again makes them really some of the best people to have around, especially in the event of a crisis. So these types can tend to be excellent in some of those professions, emergency and crisis response, because they are they've in most cases kind of run through all of those scenarios already in their head. And so they know how to respond in the moment. I'll talk about their arrows. So
a big thing, sorry to cut you off. With sixes, they're very interesting because there's the two layers to the six, right? So the counterphobic and the phobic. Did we want to talk about that? Sorry.
I guess so. I mean, apparently you do. So no, that's cool. That's cool. So counterphobic and phobic. Yeah, I mean, that is interesting because this doesn't, we brought up the phobic, we brought up the counter types when we talked about subtypes, when we referred to some of the other types. But for sixes, this is the only type of all 9 types where you can kind of see two very almost like distinct, different ways of essentially responding to fear that can look like different people. So again, sixes really grapple with fear. And so you have the phobic type who kind of, you can see that, there's more of a cowering that happens in response to fear. And then you have the counterphobic type, which is the counter type for type 6. That's the one-to-one or sexual instinct, where that their response to fear for these folks is, it doesn't look like they're afraid. They actually get big and kind of take fear head on, seemingly not afraid, but definitely afraid. It just doesn't look that way. And so it's almost like the counterphobic 6 is almost like afraid of fear itself.
And so they counterphobics can almost present like an 8,
Yep.
That really strong, big power over fear sort of a mentality, which is very different than the way that a phobic 6 looks. So sixes have that uniqueness that there's this two sort of sides of being a 6.
Yep. And really important point to mention early on, because it can for sure impact typing. Like you have a lot of folks who end up mistyping because of this.
And I would say that most of the time, Enneagram literature around 6s probably focuses more on the phobic 6. It's what you're going to hear more of if you're just looking at an Instagram account or something like that. But and so because counterphobics can look so different, they can almost get a little bit forgotten in like when we're talking about 6s, just because the main thing that people talk about is the phobic 6. So we'll try and really make sure to weave the counterphobic in there, because it's important to kind of, and it's important. It does look different. So that's important for us. Also, I think we said, I don't know if you said this, their core motivation for 6s is to be secure. And so they're always working to have security in their lives and in their relationships. And so that's what that's what they're striving to do.
Yes, fears. 6s actually have a fear of, so like we said already, fear itself, but not being supported, not having guidance, not having security, actually being physically abandoned is a core fear for many 6s. Feeling like they're being targeted, or because that could lead to being left alone, or feeling like they're being blamed because that could lead to being left. So yeah, security is very, very, very important to 6s. arrows. Sixes can they can move toward 3 and 9, types 3 and 9. So some of the unhealthy characteristics of type 3 that 6 can take on include being, arrogantly believing that they alone can see all possible scenarios, keeping busy to avoid feeling anxious, refusing to try something new if failure is a possibility, worry about their self-image and what others might be thinking of them, designing their behavior to gain security and alliances with others, and using charm and a likable persona to establish support and loyalties with others.
Mm-hmm.
6 can move toward the healthy side of type 9 in that they take the time to relax and enjoy moments, enabling their mind to slow down, empathize with others, and extend compassion to them. Develop secure relationships as they become more calm and stable and less reactive, become more open and receptive to others, becoming emotionally peaceful and self-possessed, increase independence by trusting their inner guidance, and reassure and support others instead of seeking security for themselves.
Mm-hmm. And so with 6s, when we look at the wings, they're between the 5 and the 7. And so the ways that they can use their wings as areas of growth or things to lean into is by leaning into the 5 side, they can become less emotional about an issue, and it can almost create a sense of calming for them and lower their anxiety level because they're able to sort of look at the problem for a more from a more data-driven, analytical way. They are able, when they lean into the 5 side, to almost kind of do like a reality check of what they're afraid of, to kind of be able to pause and put logic onto what's happening in their thoughts around the fear. And they can become a master at something when they lean into their 5 side by becoming an expert at whatever interests they have, and then feeling that security in that way. Mm. And then when they lean into their 7 wing, that's where they can start to explore and venture out and have adventures, be more spontaneous, can kind of be more lighthearted, and they can move into action a little bit quicker when they lean into their 7 wing, as opposed to kind of being as paralyzed with all of the what ifs and the thoughts and the, again, analysis paralysis that sometimes can come with being a 6, with thinking through all the different options. And they can also have more confidence in that 7 wing, and being able to just kind of go with it, just do it, jump in, let's see where this takes us, sort of an attitude. And that can kind of help balance them to kind of get out of that headspace by just going and doing.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Good stuff. So on a little bit of a lighter note, right? Some of the funnier kind of characteristics and anecdotes about type 6. So sixes going back to that longing for security and just kind of pattern of thinking. 6s do a lot of questioning internally. And so the way that can show up in relationships, sometimes it can be funny. I remember the point where I realized with my husband that sometimes he was asking me questions that I did not need to answer. And I remember that exchange with him. I was like, you don't actually want me to answer all these questions, do you? And he was like, no. It was such a relief for me being a 3 and wanting to make sure I'm being valuable and, meeting the need or whatever. But it was stressful because that's how he can kind of process and even connect or even relay information is by questions. So again, it can be a fun experience with 6s when it comes to this trait. And again, it's a reflection of kind of their inner world. With anything that comes up, sixes really run it through cells of questioning. And oftentimes those questions are, well, what if this, or what about that? Well, what about this? Well, how about this? Again, it's to be prepared. It's to try to be prepared. So yeah, that's fun.
It is fun. Yeah, I could co-sign that. One of my very best friends is a 6. And so those what ifs, and sometimes the what ifs, because again, they've thought it all through. Some of those what ifs are very detailed and random. I would have never thought about that. And so it'll be a what if this very, very thing that is like something that probably happens like 1% of the time happens. And I'm like, what?
That's such a good point. Yeah.
It might be the thing that is the furthest idea, but they're really actually wondering that because they've gone down that rabbit hole to that place. So it can be a lot of what ifs, a lot of questions. You're absolutely right. I think though that lends itself to they are very good in crisis, like we talked about. Sixes. Yep. All of my 6 clients, the first week of going into the pandemic and being a therapist, and switching to virtual, I was so worried about my 6s. I was like, oh my God, they're going to be so worried. Nope, Kim, my 6s were calm. They were collected.
Right.
They were like, oh yeah, I have been ready for this.
Yeah, notice.
I have every supply I could possibly need. I am safe in my room. I am safe in my house. I will not go anywhere because they told me not to go anywhere. This is great. And so a lot of my 6 clients were happy as clams because they were safe and they were prepared, and a couple of them even said, like, I knew something like this would happen one day. Like they knew that there could be a potential for a pandemic. They have already thought about what does happen if we go into a pandemic. And so they were ready. I think about my very best friend. She's a therapist as well. And she's really great at crisis planning with her clients, really great at doing any sort of like suicide prevention work, and being really great at, okay, well, what about this? What about that? What about this? What about this option? What about if you were these people? Like she can really have a very thorough crisis plan for her clients, because that is how her mind works. So I, again, I thought that was so funny that first week of the pandemic, they were happy. Happy. I had another client that was like, oh, I always worry about germs. So now you want me to stay home and not get in contact with germs? She's like, thank you. Finally. Perfect. I am so happy that we are finally doing this because I've always been concerned about all of the germs that we interact with, because they've thought it through. So very, very good at crisis. Very able to withstand crisis for sure.
Amazing.
Yes. But with that, all the what ifs and all the questions and the crisis, something that we one time heard in a training was that sometimes though, if you look at all the things that 6s are worried about, that they worry that probably about 98% of the stuff that they worry about doesn't actually happen. And that it's really ends up just being kind of 2% of the things that they worry about that actually happens. And that kind of, again, goes to, you'll sometimes hear a 6 ask you a question that you never thought of, that being the case. Again, because 98% of what they're worried about probably isn't going to happen, but they're going to be prepared for it, though. That's for sure.
For sure. Preparation is the MO.
Yes. Yes. And I guess the why of that, right, is because they're wanting to be secure. So we want to be secure. And I don't think we've talked about this yet. Trust, right? They have an interesting relationship with trust. And that looks different for the counterphobic and the phobic, but with trust, because they don't know what's going to happen, if I can handle it, will I be safe? So therefore I need to prepare, and I need to be ready, for whatever kind of comes my way. But a little bit that's based in a lack of trust, whether it's within themselves or with people or systems, not quite sure who to trust.
What about misconceptions?
Yeah. So when we think about caricatures on the Enneagram and things that kind of get generalized, anxiety is a really big word that we'll use with sixes, or people will use with sixes, is that they are the anxious ones. They're the ones that struggle with anxiety. And I would say that the misconception here is that, one, they're not the only ones on the Enneagram that struggle with anxiety. And two, I don't think all sixes have a problem with anxiety. I think, so I think just being careful with, especially us as mental health professionals, like just being careful to put, diagnoses on different numbers. And I think a lot of times people just throw anxiety onto six, on the number six, and that's not all the way true. Yes, they are thinking a lot. Yes, they are asking a lot of what ifs, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they are just anxious people. They can be, but they're not all anxious, and they're not all the time anxious.
Awesome. Yeah. And so they're not all, they're not all scaredy cats, which can kind of be, I know what you were saying earlier, Camille, about, what you may see a lot of as far as the representation of sixes. Again, going back to the fact that many sixes are actually that, counterphobic type. So their relationship with fear can look like they're not afraid at all. There's like famous examples of people who are counterphobic sixes include Evel Knievel, maybe dipping ourselves a little bit. But anybody who knows who Evel Knievel is, he was this guy who just did all these like really, really crazy stunts and tricks, like seemed totally fearless, but he was not. And so that's a misconception, that fear doesn't always look like a, withdrawing or being afraid to do. For a lot of sixes, it can look like, being all about doing just to show, kind of how much you are not afraid, even though they actually are.
Yes. I think that one of my favorite things I learned about the Enneagram 6, and then I actually use this a lot with all my clients, is this definition of courage. And courage means that we do something even though we're scared, or we do something when we're scared. I don't need to be courageous to brush my teeth because I'm not scared about it. I'm going to be courageous if I have to have a hard conversation, or I'm going to be courageous during a pandemic. I'm going to be courageous, all these things, because I'm doing something while I'm scared. And so with that definition, if we think about sixes, they are very courageous. And so it almost, again, I get kind of heated about this when we think of sixes being just these anxious little scaredy cats. I'm like, no, they're one of the bravest and most courageous numbers on the Enneagram, because they're out here doing the things that they have thought about, and they're out here living and being humans in this really hard world. And they've thought about all the ways that it can go sour and can go wrong, and they're still doing it anyway. And so that's them really exerting courage every single day. I love really reframing that for my six clients, and then reframing that for everybody, right? That to be courageous means we do it anyway. And they do that all the time.
Yeah. I mean, that's the virtue for sixes. Maybe we can cover that next season. The virtues for all the types, but like the kind of higher emotional selves. That's what sixes bring for all of us is that courage. It's there. It's kind of, it's built in them.
Yeah. So, how does race intersect with our six friends? What are the unique things that our Black sixes and our people of color sixes have to work with? The first one is, we talked about, when we're talking about all these what ifs and these scenarios, and we introduced the idea of the inner committee. that sixes have. And so when they're making a decision, they're thinking through, an inner committee means just like in their head, all the different like kind of ideas and voices, but then also their people. So they might run through a lot of situations with their family, their friends, their mentors. Like they're going to kind of get a lot of opinions on something when they're making a decision. Because again, that trust piece is something that they have to work on. And so they sometimes will trust others and trust what everybody else says instead of themselves. And so when we're thinking about the Black experience and having to make decisions and having to think through what to do and what job to take and how to show up and how to interact with this person, and should I say something or should I not say something? All the questions that we all are kind of asking just as people, and then as Black people, adding that into a sixth brain, that when they're already doing that, that can just lead to a lot of exhaustion, just a lot of exhaustion of having to make so many decisions of what, and figuring out what is the right decision, what's the right thing to do, what's the safest and most secure thing to do. That can just get really overwhelming.
Mm. Mm. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Another something else that comes up is, so sixes tend to, like we said, they are very loyal people. And so a part of that looks like sixes really be having this commitment and I don't know, maybe sometimes over-identifying, but like really heavily identifying with underdog causes. And I think that's in part because at times sixes can kind of feel that way themselves. But they can really relate to and connect with people, efforts, organizations, etc. Yeah. That are, for lack of better terminology, are not really positioned to win or succeed. And so, when you talk about being people of color who kind of come into this world with so many things already just stacked against us, in many ways, systemically and historically, being faced with so much oppression, you see this intersection with this personality type, and being a person of color who has perhaps experienced some of that or witnessed some of that, or very in touch with, connected to some of those experiences for us. Just how that can show up. So sixes can really root for, cheer for, encourage. Sixes are great at like cheering us on and rooting us on and encouraging us, especially, when you have that 6 wing 7, that combination. So, we need that, we need that. We need to know that, we'll have that person or people kind of in our corner, rooting for us, seeing us, cheering for us, really wanting, us to succeed and win and rise to the top.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hey, so a part of our hope is to really connect with you guys. So we want to know what you're getting from this and what you want to learn more about on this podcast.
You can connect with Camille on Instagram at camille.logan.lcmhc.
And you can find Kim on Instagram at KReeseLCSW.
And you can follow us both on Instagram at Enneagram for the Culture. We've dropped the links in the show notes, so check those out too. And while you're there, go ahead and bless us with a rating and a review. Subscribe so you can be notified when our new episodes drop weekly, and share this with someone you know. We'll see you around.
We've talked about this a lot just in our personal conversations, that idea of double consciousness, right? I think we've talked about, and that uniqueness that as Black people, where we, let me make sure I got it right and to define it right. We are thinking about how we act and then how it looks, how it looks to the white a white person's eyes. And so that double consciousness, that whenever we are moving through this world, we're thinking of both things. And that is unique to us. And when I think about sixes who, again, are already thinking about a lot of stuff, and how am I moving and how is this going to affect me and affect others? And then I put that in the lens and add in the double consciousness of okay, and then how does this look to white people? And how does this, what does this feel like? There's, again, another layer of all of the like layers of thinking that is happening for a Black six of just all of that. It's a lot. It's a lot when you're not a six. I mean, I find that double consciousness extremely exhausting. And sometimes I don't even realize that I do it.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. And it's been something that I've have started to watch and name when I see other people do it. Because then I'm like, oh, they're doing that thing that I do. Like, they just said this thing. And it's so interesting how it's just like kind of just the way we move through the world is thinking about both of those things. Yeah.
What else? So again, going back to the counter type for sixes, that counterphobic six, and how this type can relate to rules and authority. And I think sometimes this can be the case for even types that are, even sixes that are phobic. I think is much more prevalent with the counterphobic six, but just going back to this whole notion of trust, right? And I think that going back to sixes being in the center and being repressed in this instinct, this thought, thinking instinct, that's how it can show up. Camille, I think you said something earlier. It's like sixes can tend to like not trust so much what they believe and prioritize what other people believe. And that's how I see that showing up at times. It's like you do know, but you kind of tell yourself that you don't know and tell yourself that what they know is better or right. And so you end up not trusting what you do know. And that can bite sixes in the butt sometimes. But again, this whole thing with trust, it can make for an interesting relationship with rules and authority figures. And so back to some of the conversations I think we were talking about when we were covering the type 8, just what that can mean, to have that relationship or perspective on rules and authority figures and being a person of color. Just the potential, just the impact. And again, going back to the double consciousness and all the things to think about and being aware of. And, but again, unfortunately, and it's just so scary today that we're talking about this meaning of life, at times life and death, which just gets into more of what is very traumatic for a lot of us who are Black.
Yeah. I think that maybe I relate so much to this because I have, I'm a 7 and so I'm right next to the sixes, but I think about, when I'm choosing training programs for what I'm trying to learn, when I'm choosing my friends, my church, my things, I do. And I think most Black people do this, but maybe again, I'm in the head triad where I'm also thinking about like, can I trust these people? Like, can I trust them? Am I safe here? That's all Black people. Am I safe
for
here?
Sure.
And am I safe in this neighborhood? Am I safe in this town where I'm driving? Am I safe at this gas station? Like, am I safe? And so then again, if that's just a natural way of being in this country, if then again, I'm a 6 who that's my personality to do that. Again, it's kind of layered on twice. Am I safe here?
And
do I trust these people?
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
And you have all of these systems and rules and authority figures who are put in place, and we're supposed to believe and trust that it's there to keep us safe. But what we're experiencing is not the case. So again, you can sense the an idea of the impact for
and we talk about like context, right? The pandemic, like we hesitation with vaccines. We have hesitation. We have then, hesitations with mental health. We have hesitations with doctors because of what has been experienced. And so there's always that question of, is this safe? Am I going to get hurt? Because there's a legit history of it being bad and unsafe. And then having to face that with always the questioning that happens in a 6's mind. Mm-hmm. Speak specifically to the counterphobic part of that with the rules and authority. What does that, so then is it like a powering over the rules and authority, or is it, I don't need these rules? I don't like.
Oh, it could be all of the above, but yeah, just what I really can speak to is just like the suspicion. Like we said, 6's are known as the loyal skeptics. So just kind of like not really trusting. 6's really, especially like authority figures, like you really need to prove to 6's that you know enough to be in that position or are responsible enough, deserving enough to be in that position in order for 6's to trust. Again, especially counterphobic 6's, they're going to kind of come into it like, I got it and I know everything. And if you're going to tell me what the rules are, then, I'll run that against, my own values. And if that works for me, and I'll let you know. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But beneath all of that, very much a desire to come in, fit in, be a part of the team, be a part of the mission, be a part of the cause. Like that's what's really happening beneath the surface. Again, context, you might not see that with a counterphobic 6 versus a phobic 6.
Wow. Yeah. That's
not appear that way.
Really interesting. And then, sadly, right, when we think about, again, worst case scenarios, all these what ifs, and I said this earlier that like a 6 is going to come at you with like the farthest idea of what if this thing happens. I'm trying to think of an example of that. I hope she will laugh if she hears this. My best friend one time, she was wondering, what if there was a boy, what if this person poisons me with the food that they give me, right? I do not think about that. That's not something that crosses my mind. That is a very far stretch of that possibly happening. But she has thought about it and she wants to know if this person poisons her by leaving her, giving her a treat. So then we put that into the Black experience. If I'm thinking of the furthest possible idea of a situation, which is what a 6 does, and then I'm Black, I am going to think about, what if I go to this gas station and X, Y, and Z happens? Or what if I do take the vaccine and I turn into something? They really are going to think of that tiny % chance thing happening. They're going to think about it. And that's a lot to walk through. And I think about, so many, you hear this all the time, Black moms thinking about their kids and their Black sons, going on a walk or wearing a hoodie, or what if this thing happens? And that's just a normal thing that Black people think about. And then for you to be a 6 and that to be a very, almost like a very real question of, no, what if my son is walking down the street and this thing happens? So that's a lot to have to carry and to work through.
I have so many thoughts. We could say so much more. I could say so much more. We got to keep going though, because we have more stuff to talk about.
I'm curious.
I have so much more. So the going back to what you asked about. So like speaking to the counter, how that looks for a Black 6 who is counterphobic. It can almost, I'm thinking about my husband, it can look like a very bold expression of, like kind of like revolutionary thinking, like rising up against, again, I think still beneath that though, of fear, but just the way it shows up is like, it just looks very not afraid.
So if I was a counterphobic, six, I might say, I am going to go into the gas station and I am going to like that. Yes.
Not just that, but with like, so my husband, he's like 6'3", maybe 6'4", very, very into working out, which is also kind of a common thing I read about with counterphobic sixes. They can be very big on physical activity, very in touch with their bodies. What part of that is a sense of preparation, right? Mm-hmm. So if something happens, their body is ready to take it on. Mm-hmm. But so, he's this tall, fairly large Black man, big, full beard, muscles, tattoos, Black Lives Matter tattooed on his hand. He might have an Africa medallion around his neck. I mean, he's very like, yeah, I'm gonna come in the gas station and y'all gonna know how Black and big and ready I am in here. But it could be a very scary, you're talking about some of these insights you've gotten from your friend. I mean, my husband loves sports. He loves a lot of different things. And the questions I get about like hypothetical scenarios, like just in the form of sports. Hey, what do you think would happen if this person was on the team with this person, and this person with this coach? I'm like, I have no time to even process a response to that. Like, who sits around and just thinks, I don't know. I need like 2 days. Like, I'll get back to you. I don't know. But like you're saying, you kind of pair that ability and capacity and habitual pattern of thinking with some of these worries and things we're up against as Black people. And then again, in those situations where that response looks like you're not going to know I'm afraid. I'm not even going to accept that I'm afraid. In fact, I'm going to show how unafraid I am, how all of that can kind of come together, and it can be a lot.
Yeah, that is, I think that what you're saying, probably, I hope for so many people, they feel so seen. Because again, that is such an interesting thing about like that. I think the counterphobic 6 part of the Enneagram is so interesting and not talked about enough. And then adding that into race, like that is a big deal. I'm going to really puff up and I'm going to show you that I'm not afraid, but I am. Yeah, that's big. And I've like chills. I just have chills of what, of that. And I have chills thinking about just the worries that we face as Black people and the amount of worry, that is really prevalent, in our world, and how much we do think about safety, and trust, and am I going to be hurt here? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And wanting security, right? Like, and all of us, I mean, that's a human nature thing. We all want security.
Absolutely.
And then, sixes, that's their biggest drive is security, stability. And so wanting that even more and wanting to do whatever they can to create that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so with that, they bring that. So it's one of the positive traits we can look to and be grateful for in our sixes is that they bring that to our experience because it's such a priority for them and it's so important to them. Inevitably, they end up bringing that and providing that a sense of security. Sixes are going to be there. Sixes are going to be committed no matter how hard and rough and treacherous it gets. No matter how scared they may be, sixes can be committed to the cause and you can really count on them. They're so hardworking. And so they can bring that to our experience.
Yeah. When the loyalty piece of that, committed to the cause, the sixes in my life, they rock hard for the things that they rock hard for. And so they, sports teams, groups of people, they keep their friends. They have friends from high school. They have it's like a crew. It's like it's like, this is my gang that I've kept and we're close. And so when I think about bringing that to the Black experience, like they're loyal and they're in, and they're just in, they're there. I think something with that loyalty, I think of also faith, in terms of faith, yes, higher power faith, but also faith, just like the faithfulness of a six again, because they have to, they're going to show up and they, again, like they're there. So there's a sense of faithfulness with them, that I think is really cool. And that's something that, again, bringing that to the Black experience, like we need that like we're going to be able to see this through. We're going to be able to do it. We just have to, we might think it through and we're going to have to figure it out, but we're going to be able to do it. And I think that that's really cool. I really like, having a best friend that's a 6, and I'm again a 7 who, is in my head. But something looks fun, I'm going to go do it. And so I'm just going to go because it's fun. And I sometimes need somebody for me, and I sometimes will literally ask like, hey, walk me through all the things that could happen here. Walk me through why this might not be a good idea.
On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being just as on it as you can possibly be, how on it is your best friend when you ask for that?
She is ready. Ready. She's like, oh, this can happen, this can happen, this can happen, this, and this, and this. Did you think about this? And then what about this? What about in 2 years when this happened? And I'm like,
man, that's the thing. You better be ready for an answer when you ask a 6 something like that, because they have been there. They are there, and they have that list, and they are ready, and they'll probably tell you a whole lot more than even what you were prepared for.
Ready, prepared. And so when I think about that, bringing that to the Black experience, like, yeah, like let's think it through. Let's make a plan. Let's think it through and be thorough in that plan, and be ready for anything. And again, we talk a lot about this with like activism and changing the world and being on these boards of change and these committees and social groups. 6s are great, right? Because they're gonna be prepared. They're gonna think about all of the ways that we can do this and all the ways that we need to be prepared for this thing that we're trying to work on.
Yeah. And they're charismatic, and I mean that like, they are people that they know how to connect with people, but they're also people who are of good character. Again, they're going back to some of their values and being such loyal people who value security. I mean, they're good people. And so they are thoughtful and intentional in many ways. They just really they know how to connect. They know how to kind of reel you in. They know how to connect with people. And again, because security is important, and not being alone is so important to them. They know how to kind of nurture those connections and those relationships. Like you said, for a lot of them, they've had their friendships for decades. So we need that.
Yeah, I love the idea of them being charismatic. That I like. Yeah, they're like you said, they're good people. I like them. They're charismatic. They're people. They, they can be introverted. Don't think that they're all extroverted. But they are going to connect with you well. You're gonna smile. You're gonna have a nice time talking to them. They're good. They're good folks.
Yeah. So
what are helpful ways for our 6s to grow with all of this? I kind of got stressed out. Get to the growth piece.
Oh yeah. So 6. I mean, this comes up. We've talked about trust, and I love touching on this with my clients who are 6s. I love reminding the 6s in my life of this. I mean, really, of all the types on the Enneagram, 6s are not in the gut triad, right? We said over and over, they're in the head triad. But 6s be knowing, and they can just be really out of touch with that because of all of the questioning and sometimes the fear and the anxiety. They can be really out of touch with how they know, or their sense and ways of knowing. And so this is, I think for each type, there's a something about them that I just really gush over. I just melt about. And I think it's just so beautiful to witness. And that would be this for me, for 6s, is when they can trust themselves, when they can tap into and connect with those parts of themselves that do know. Because let's be honest, like we said, you've thought about it over and over. So you do know. So like, give yourself that permission and honor the ways that you know. And so when sixes can trust themselves, when they can make it a priority to have that awareness and honor what they think versus other people, and really trust themselves. It's such a gift to the people you're in relationships with, your communities, your teams, your colleagues, your family, and to you, because it can really help alleviate some of the worry and the anxiety when you can connect with the fact that you know, and that's always there. You know, it's always available to you, is to connect with that.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. Trusting yourself is always going to be the work of a six. Something I like to do with sixes is to say, how sure are you? How sure are you of that in a percentage? And what ends up happening is they're like, I'm 90% sure. Mm-hmm. I'm like, go with that. That's it. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they'll get stuck on the 10% that they're not sure. Mm-hmm. And then they get stuck in the whole spinning and the questioning and let me ask a bunch of people and I don't know. And it's like, no, but 90% of you is sure. That is a big number. We're going to trust 90%. Like that is you trusting yourself. Bet on that, right? Bet on that 90%. Bet on yourself that you know the answer here. And so that's something with that, a way for them to help trust themselves is how sure am I? And recognize that I actually do know. With that, something that another intervention that's helpful for sixes is to actually like write down the things that they're worried about, just in list form, and then to tuck it away. And then to go back a week later, 2 weeks later, a year later, and look and see, okay, wow, a lot of that stuff didn't happen. And so again, trusting themselves that like, hey, I actually do know that I can handle it, or I do know that it wasn't as big of a deal, or look, it didn't even happen. And that was maybe that 10% that I was spinning on that I wrote down and it didn't happen. So trusting that little bit that you're questioning might not even happen. And so that's just a way to kind of start to like, that's good. Put like stats and evidence, leaning into that 5 side, like put evidence into it. Like, oh yeah, remember that time I thought that the person was going to poison me? And look, 10 out of 10 times it didn't happen. So I you know what? I think I could actually, that's a pretty good rate of success. So I'm going to trust that it's not going to happen. With another intervention, something that usually with a therapist, this is going to be most helpful. So kind of doing like personifying the fear. So actually making the fear a like person or a thing that you can actually start to like do some parts work. This is getting into really technical with therapy, but getting into parts work around what is the purpose and the mission of the fear? What is the fear trying to do here? And how can I maybe even talk back to the fear and say, hey, thank you so much for keeping me safe. Thank you for all the times that you keep me on my toes and prepared. But right now I don't need you. And I'm actually going to trust that I'm 90% sure. And if I'm not right, I can actually use you to help me prepare for the next situation.
I love that.
So really doing some of that parts work with a therapist, and actually personifying your fear, and talking back to it and saying, hey, I got this. And thank you for helping me. And then the same thing with relating to the inner committee. So again, almost making your inner committee and your committee again, like a thing that you can actually talk with, to be like, hey, thank you so much for all of these opinions. Thank you for helping me to figure it out. But you know what, I'm going to go with this. And if I need you, I'll come back to you. And so really being able to relate to the purpose of the inner committee. What is it there for? What are they trying to do? And do I need it at this point? And that maybe I don't need you right now.
I love that. Really good.
I think also with the trusting yourself and all this stuff, like the personifying the fear, it would be, sometimes we do this with our clients. All of us have probably all done it at some point as therapists, where we will say, okay, well then we'll go down the what if train. Well, what if this happens? What if this happens? And usually what ends up happening when you do that with a client is they get to a place, well, then I'll be okay. Right? Like if an easy example would be, what if I fail this test? Okay, if I fail this test, then what happens? Okay, then this, then what happens? Then this, and the kind of problem solving for all of the what ifs. And then usually they get to a place and you know what? Then I'll be okay. It'll be okay. I'll figure it out. I'll study harder next time, or I will work hard, and again, it loops back to your strength in yourself to say, oh, I actually have got this. If the bad thing happens, I've actually got it. And I can trust myself that I will be able to have it. So I guess though, if someone was going to poison your food, I guess you can trust that you can call the ambulance and you can trust that you got insurance, and you can trust that you're going to have people around you to come visit you and you're going to be okay.
Yeah. I mean, yes, trust. And there's so much that is goodness and there's so much that's helpful about learning how to work with a lot of these parts of our human experience that you're describing, Camille, be it fear, anxiety, or worry, or inner committee. What we can be used to doing is like really being frustrated with it and kind of judging ourselves for the fact that it's there. And we end up trying to kind of like work against it or have these expectations that we need to try to get rid of it. But when we can learn how to work with it, that just helps so much with the tension and the inner conflict. So those are really helpful tips, I think. I hope. Sure.
Yes.
Prioritizing balance can be really, really helpful for sixes. So doing things that make you feel grounded and connected. Routines oftentimes are very, very helpful for sixes. Anything that feels like it's creating that structure or security, that we keep going back to. And then for our counterphobic sixes, just being aware of how anxiety and fear can show up for you. Like we said, it can look very different in comparison to a phobic six, or just other ways fear can show up. So for counterphobic sixes, just knowing that, realizing that at times you can puff up or maybe take up more space or be ready to, at times, honestly, I think it can look like impulse. Because we're, kind of acting off of instinct. But, when you can feel that energy, knowing that there's quite possibly and probably some fear there. And so much like Camille has been saying, and kind of the theme of this episode is to learn how to be in tune with that and attune with that and take care of that. Because again, especially as a counterphobic six, you're in a position for you to be more out of touch with it. So I hope that's helpful.
I think so. I think it is helpful. I've loved this conversation around sixes and again, what they bring to the table with that courage and preparedness and stability and loyalty. Good people. I'm glad we got to spend time talking about them today.
Yeah, me too. Shout out to sixes.
And both of us have very close sixes in our life. So individual thank yous to them.
Most definitely.
I love that. All right. So that's it for sixes. Next, we've got sevens. Woo! I feel
Yes.
I remember when we were talking about threes, you said, I'm a little bit nervous. And now I was like, why? And now I'm like, oh God.
Put all your stuff on blast. It's a good time.
All my stuff on blast. Yeah, it will be fun. It will be.
So we'll see y'all there.
We'll see you on the next episode. Bye.
Bye-bye.